Are recording. All right, so yesterday we focused on a couple things. We focused on how natural selection affects populations in terms of directional selection, stabilizing selection, and disruptive selection. We also talked a little bit about Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. If natural selection is not occurring, if a lot of other factors are met, we're in genetic equilibrium. It doesn't happen that often, but it can. What we want to talk about today is really that kind of disruptive selection piece. What we want to talk about is the formation of the species, otherwise known as speciation. So speciation is the process of forming a new species. A couple of things with speciation here. We talked about it yesterday, right? How do we define a species? Well, it's not that easy, but what definition were we using to define a species? There's many different definitions, but what one did we use? The ability to produce viable offspring, right? So, just in case, I think I talked about it in the other class. We have to define what it means to be a species. A species is a group of animals that can reproduce, and not only reproduce, but they reproduce viable offspring. The best way to understand that is to talk about two organisms that are not the same species. A horse and a donkey. Horse and donkeys, they can mate. When they mate, what do they get? Donkey. No, don't be a zebra. They would get a mule, right? A mule. Mules are infertile. Mules cannot reproduce. Therefore, horses and donkeys are not the same species. Mules are infertile, right? So that is our definition of species. Horses and donkeys are close enough relationship-wise that they can reproduce, but do they reproduce viable offspring that can continue on the species? No. Right? If you produce thousands and thousands of mules and then kill all the horses and donkeys in the world, the mules will die off by the next generation because they can't reproduce. Yes. Lion tigers are separate species. They can produce ligers. There are some instances where ligers can reproduce with another lion or tiger, depending on. But if you just produce ligers themselves, the liger species cannot reproduce. Is everyone okay? So that's our definition. Because there's too much genetic difference between them. I'm pretty sure with the mule one, I think, if I'm correct, I could be wrong with this, but we'll look it up in a second. But I think donkeys and horses have different chromosome numbers. So when they reproduce, you get an odd number of chromosomes in the mules, therefore the babies don't form properly. I think that's why it's inverted. Okay, so that's our definition. Now, you would think it'd be pretty easy to define a species. But think about it. If our definition is to be able to survive and reproduce viable offspring, well, what about plants? Plants can kind of cross with other species of plants and produce viable hybrids. The definition kind of falls apart. Also, think about bacteria. Do bacteria even reproduce sexually? They reproduce asexually. Therefore, that definition doesn't work in all for bacteria. Right? So it's hard to define what a species is, harder than you think. Okay, so what we want to talk about is the process of speciation. The moment of speciation is when we are reproductively isolated from one another. That's really what our definition is. Reproductively isolated means that they're no longer producing viable offspring. So reproductive isolation, when that occurs, that is the moment of speciation. However, there are certain types of mechanisms, certain types of isolation that can lead to reproductive isolation. So just be careful with this slide. Reproductive isolation is not in the same group as behavioral geographic support isolation. Reproductive isolation is separate. It is what happens when species occurs. You become reproductively isolated. The behavioral geographical temporal isolation are certain mechanisms. There's other ones that could possibly lead to reproductive isolation. Everybody ready? All right. So now, let's talk about behavioral isolation. Behavioral isolation, things such as mating calls, mating dances, coloration, bird songs, right? All of these are behavioral isolation. This is going to talk about this. Talk about bird songs. Picture the rainforest. Have a species of birds. They have a nice bird song to find a mate. Some birds have a slightly higher pitched bird song. Some birds have a slightly lower pitched bird song. For a long time, it didn't matter. The birds intermingled. However, over a long period of time, the birds started to kind of be attracted towards one or the other. So they started to be attracted towards the higher pitched bird song or the lower pitched bird song. So the species, the population starts to kind of separate a little bit. Now, here's what you have to kind of understand. When we have the separation, we're talking about gene pools. So when I talk about they're separating from one another, it doesn't mean that they're physically separated. It means that they're no longer mating with one another. Which means their gene pools, are they being crossed with one another, or are they being isolated from one another? They're being isolated from one another. That's important. So what's happening with behavioral isolation is that bird call is causing enough separation to isolate the gene pools. So the higher pitched birds are only mating with higher pitched birds. The lower pitched birds are only mating with lower pitched birds. Now, if that happens, their gene pools are now on separate tracks. And if they're on separate tracks, could there be some movement of genetic change away from each other? Absolutely. Does it mean that it's going to? If the two gene pools remain separate for 100 years because they're attracted to high pitch and low pitch, does it mean that we're absolutely going to get a new species? No. But what it means is that it's a possibility because their gene pools are separate. If there's enough genetic change in one gene pool compared to the other, if those birds start to kind of commingle again and start to reproduce together, if they don't get a viable offspring, they wouldn't become species. However, could behavioral isolation happen for 1,000 years? And then eventually the birds start mating again and they get totally fine offspring? Could that happen as well? Absolutely. And in that case, did speciation occur? No. So all of these are mechanisms that isolate the gene pools, that separate the populations, so they're no longer breeding with one another, which gives the gap that allows for genetic change between the two. And if there's enough genetic change, they could become a new species. That's behavioral isolation. I've gone through about colors. We attracted different colors, different mating gauges, in one case, maybe the bird's attracted to the bird that shakes the right leg, the other bird's attracted to the bird that shakes the left leg, and who knows? Yes, you get the point. So behavioral isolation. Geographic isolation is easy. Picture a group of insects, right? So we have a whole bunch of ants. All of a sudden, there's major flooding in the Amazon, and that ant population is separated by this small tributary, this small new kind of river. Let's say a new stream that's formed because of the massive flooding. Now, those ants are geographically isolated from one another. Can they commingle anymore? Can their gene pools cross? No. So could that eventually lead to reproductive isolation? Good. Is it going to absolutely for sure? No, but it gives the possibility. I keep clicking it. What's going on? It's not plugged in. All right. The last one is temporal isolation. Okay. The last one is temporal isolation. This is what's going on right now. Our plants, our trees have no clue what time of the year is right now. Think about it. It was 72 degrees on Christmas Eve. Winter was literally 1 day this year. Right? We got one snowstorm. That's it. How are our plants monitoring the time of season? If it changes in temperatures, how do they know what it is? For them, it might be like, mid-April. Sorry, not mid-April, like maybe mid-June. Who knows? It's hard for them to track it because we've had such crazy weather. So let's talk about our oak trees. There's a good chance, because there's been such crazy weather, that some oak trees might be ready to pollinate right now. That's why we're starting to get allergies. They're going to pollinate. They're releasing them all. They're trying to fertilize their seeds. But the other group of oak trees might be confused. They might not be ready to pollinate for another month or two. Those two groups of oak trees are not going to cross their gene pools this year because of that. Right? So therefore, they are temporally isolated. The changing seasons is affecting. This also happens with animals as well. Think about hibernation. Some squirrels or some bears might have hibernated early this year and woke up. Some might be still hibernating right now. Therefore, they never crossed before. So the changing seasons is what affects temporal isolation. Okay. We are going to stop right there. This is the one last thing I want to talk about, but I want to leave it for after break. I want something to talk about. Come back on Monday after break, and I'll start with this. But we're pretty much done. Really, you have this slide and that slide. That's it. So we are good.